I'm so glad you're here. Well, today we're doing our 7th study on the 144,000 sealed Jews. And this video will complete the series, although I think I could make another 7 videos because there's so much here. There's so much in the Bible that tells us who the 144 are, what they're going to be doing, where they come from. But I'm going to, of course, leave a lot for you to study on your own. So this is just an overview of 2 verses that we're going to be studying today. Revelation chapter 14, verses 4 and 5. And what we're going to notice is that these 2 verses actually hold in them the clue of how we're supposed to study these 2 verses. Let me show you what I mean. I'm going to read them in the way that the Holy Spirit has structured them. And you're going to get a clue that this is a contrast study. Here's what I mean. Revelation chapter 14, verses 4 and 5, New American Standard Bible. These are the ones who have not been defiled with women, for they have kept themselves chaste. These are the ones who follow the Lamb wherever he goes. These have been purchased from among men as first fruits to God and to the Lamb. Verse 5, and no lie was found in their mouths. They are blameless. Okay, so where I put the emphasis is giving the clue that God is wanting us to do a contrast study. He wants us to study the difference between the 144,000 righteous Jews and another people group. I wonder who that other people group is. Who was it in the Bible? What nation in the Bible did God continually call out as playing the harlot? Israel. All right? So the 144,000, as a contrast, they are righteous. They are not partaking of the harlotries of the nation of Israel. Let me read some of these verses that God has provided in the Old Testament that makes this very clear to us. Look at Numbers chapter 15, verse 39. God says, it shall be a tassel for you to look at and remember all the commandments of the Lord, so as to do them, and not follow after your own heart and your own eyes, after which you played the harlot. So God gave them laws and commandments and righteous statutes, but they just went and did their own thing. Well, that's considered playing the harlot. Look at Psalm 106:39. Thus they became unclean in their practices and played the harlot in their deeds. So their practices, their daily activities, their culture. They turned their culture into the same culture as all the Gentile nations were doing, and God called Israel a harlot for doing this. Ezekiel chapter 6, verse 9. Then those of you who escape will remember me among the nations to which they will be carried captive, how I have been hurt by their adulterous hearts which turned away from me, and by their eyes which played the harlot after their idols. And they will loathe themselves in their own sight for the evils which they have committed, for all their abominations. Okay, I want you to notice that in this verse, Ezekiel 6:9, this has not happened yet. They have not loathed themselves in their own sight for the evils which they have committed, or for all of their abominations. So this is going to happen at a future scattering, a time in the future where they are taken captive. When will that be? Yeah, right after that Mid-Trib situation, when the beast turns against Israel and the time of Jacob's trouble begins. That's when all the nations are going to take them captive and haul them off their land. But God is promising that while they are off the land and recognizing why they are off the land, that's when they will recognize all the sins that they've done and which they're doing now. I know this goes against the narrative. We're going to talk about that in a minute here. Ezekiel chapter 16, verse 26. You also played the harlot with the Egyptians, your lustful neighbors, and multiplied your harlotry to make me angry. Ezekiel 16:28. Moreover, you played the harlot with the Assyrians because you were not satisfied. So now think about this. When you're not satisfied, you're thinking about all the things you want, all the things you wish you had. You're actually being ungrateful for what you have. You're being ungrateful for all the provision that God has made for you. And man, this is just something we all need to take to heart, because we don't want to be playing the harlot, do we? And if we have discovered through a verse like this that we are playing the harlot, God is giving us an opportunity on this side of the pre-trib rapture to seek forgiveness, to identify that and seek forgiveness. And this is always a helpful thing to do. Hosea 2:5, for their mother has played the harlot. She who conceived them has acted shamefully, for she said, I will go to my lovers who gave me my bread and my water, my wool and my flax, my oil and my drink. So here's all the things that God was providing Israel with, and in abundance and of the highest quality, but she wants to go get them from other sources. She wants to outsource all of her needs. Hosea 5:3, God says, I know Ephraim and Israel is not hidden from me. For now, O Ephraim, you have played the harlot. Israel has defiled itself. Okay, so now let me reread Revelation 14:4. These are the ones who have not been defiled with women, for they have kept themselves chaste. These are the ones who follow the Lamb wherever he goes. These have been purchased from among men as first fruits to God and to the Lamb. All right, so what we see is after the pre-trib rapture of the bride, a covenant is going to be confirmed with Israel, with the many. And we don't know how long of a gap that is, but we do see by this prophecy that there are going to be 144 Jews that say, I am not going after that fake king you've picked, that fake Messiah. And by the way, all these Abraham accords you're making and these Cyrus accords they're talking about, So they are going to rise up and recognize their nation's harlotries. And really, any nation should be doing this because, the harlot is being played everywhere. So this portion, the 12,000 from every tribe, and God knows who they are. We don't. We don't know how much of a percentage of Jacob's seed needs to be in each of these young men, but God knows. Okay, now something I want you to notice, if you have time, some homework. David's men were chaste when eating the bread of presence in 1 Samuel chapter 21, verses 2 through 6. David said, these young men have kept themselves from being defiled. Well, young men, when you do the word study, it means adolescent. It's from newborn to adolescent. So these are going to be very young men that are the 144,000. And I got thinking about, remember, during the Exodus, the nation of Israel was wandering around in Israel for those 40 years, and they were whining, griping, and complaining the whole time. But it was one of the situations when God said, all right, it's going to be your young kids that go into the promised land. You older folk, nope, you're not going in. You're all going to die in the wilderness. And it was the young generation that actually entered into the promised land. So this is a type and a shadow of what these 144,000 young Jewish men will be like. And it says here in verse 4 that God has purchased them from among men. Well, there's a verse in Isaiah 43, chapter 4. I've got it here in my notes somewhere. And let's start actually in Isaiah 43, verses 1, 2, and 4. Listen to this. This is powerful. This is what the Lord says. He who is your creator, Jacob, and he who formed you, Israel, do not fear, for I have redeemed you. I have called you by name. You are mine. When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. And through the rivers, they will not overflow you. When you walk through the fire, you will not be scorched, nor will the flame burn you. Now we know these 144,000 are going to have to survive the first half of the tribulation. Let's go on to verse 4, Isaiah 43:4. Since you are precious in my sight, since you are honored and I love you, I will give other people in your place and other nations in exchange for your life. Wow. And don't you feel like God has done that for you? I feel like he's done that for me. I take these words to heart, that I'm precious in his sight, that he honors me and that he loves me. And he has exchanged, he's given other people in my place. I have salvation because somehow there was a backroom deal made. We know God makes backroom deals with Satan because we saw it happening in Job. Job never knew what that backroom deal was that God made with Satan. Okay, now let's go on to verse 5. I want to pull out just a few things here. It says in Revelation 14:5, God says, and no lie was found in their mouths, they are blameless. Okay. So God, again, we see he's making a distinction, a contrast between the 144,000 and those other citizens in the nation of Israel. And it took me, my thoughts, to John chapter 1, verses 47 through 51. And it made all new sense of what was going on here with Nathaniel. So John chapter 1, verse 47 through 51, listen to this. Jesus saw Nathanael coming to him and said of him, behold, an Israelite indeed, in whom there is no deceit. Oh, that matches with Revelation 14:5, the 144,000. There was no lie. That word lie, as in not telling the truth, in Revelation 14:5, that word is Strong's G1388. It means deceit. It means guile. So God is saying in that 144,000, they're not telling lies, they're not deceitful, they're not guile. None of that was found in their mouths because they are blameless. But God is saying here in John 1:47, Nathaniel, there is no deceit in him. So we're getting a clue that Nathaniel here is a type and shadow of the 144,000. So we're going to keep our heads perked up here as we finish this passage. So John 1:48, Nathanael said to him, how do you know me? Jesus answered and said to him, before Philip called you, when you were under the fig tree, I saw you. Okay, now normally when we read this verse, we think of a young man sitting underneath a tree. Well, I want you to think of under as in authority, because a time is coming where those 144,000 in the first half of the tribulation, remember the bride was raptured pre-trib, she doesn't even go into the tribulation. The 144,000 and the sleepy, lukewarm, left behind church, they are in the first half. But we know that God's wrath isn't poured out until the 6th year of the tribulation. So the church will be long gone before then as well. But look at verse 48 again. Jesus said, I saw you, Nathanael, when you were under the fig tree, under the authority of these wicked rulers whose mouths are full of lies and deceit and guile, and they are not blameless. They are not following the Lamb, their Messiah, wherever he goes. Verse 49, Nathanael answered him, Rabbi, you are the Son of God. You are the King of Israel. Wow, he labeled Jesus with 3 things, important things: Rabbi, the teacher, Son of God, and the King of Israel. So he clued in, I'm wondering what kind of a vision Nathanael had in his prayer time. And we know Nathanael had a vision because Jesus tells us this in verse 50. Jesus answered and said to him, because I said to you that I saw you under the fig tree, do you believe? You will see greater things than these. Okay, did you see that? Right there, Jesus was telling us Nathanael had a vision. He saw something while sitting under the authority, this oppressive authority of Israel. Verse 51, Jesus goes on to say, "Truly, truly, I say to you, you will see the heavens opened and the angels of God ascending and descending on the Son of Man." Well, indeed, they will. The 144,000, while they are ministering during the first half of the tribulation, and their ministry will look much like the Apostle Paul's, they're going to be seeing with their spiritual eyes the bride ascending and descending on the Son of Man. Kind of like Jacob's ladder. Angels were ascending and descending on Jacob's ladder. Okay, now, many people feel very uncomfortable if they were to hear me talk like this about Israel, that they are playing the harlot. And it's because of the way the church has received bribery dollars from Israel to form this narrative that we need to bless Israel in a certain way, particularly that we need to continue giving her billions and billions of dollars every year just for being God's chosen nation. Now, personally, I think the way we are to bless Israel is to bring the good news of salvation, keep preaching the gospel to the nation of Israel. And I think if we're sending any dollars to Israel, it should be to these messianic ministries that are preaching the gospel. Okay, so now many would say, well, Sue, you are cursing Israel. The way you are reading that she's the harlot, you are actually cursing Israel. I would have to say, really? I'm just saying what God is saying. I'm just reading the verses. God is the one who is calling Israel the harlot. I'm just reading the Bible. I'm just seeing what's going on. And how do I know that Israel is currently playing the harlot? Well, I don't just believe everything that right conservatives, there's the left and the right, there's conservatives and liberals. I get two sides of the story. I think that's a very prudent thing that Christians should be doing right now. If I hear the left saying that there is a genocide going on in Palestine, well, I know that there's pastors that are saying absolutely opposite. I know there's news channels, they're saying the opposite, but I need to find out, why are there other channels saying that there's a genocide going on? So I turn to independent news agencies and I try to learn about this. Why do some people say that there's a genocide going on? I want to know. All right, so again, I think that's just being very wise and prudent. And I think it's a very unfortunate thing that a lot of Christians are just drinking up everything that is being said from the pulpits and from Christian radio, Christian TV, Christian YouTube channels, Christian, this and that. I think it's a good thing if we are to get a broad education. And it takes some time and you have to listen to a lot of rough stuff for sure, but at least then you can see where both sides are being manipulated. And there's something that the beast wants to do. He wants to funnel us into just two camps. He wants to funnel Christians into two camps. He wants to funnel some of the Christians into being these right-wing conservative Christians that just say, yes, keep giving Israel our money, keep blessing Israel, yes, go ahead and send more. Okay, then there's another camp that I see Satan herding Christians into, and that would be the camp where the people are saying, yes, Israel is so wicked, they are doing this, that, and the other thing, and oh, they're never going to be blessed, the church replaces them. They're not going to have any inheritance. God is going to deal with them and they're all going to be wiped out. And it's going to be the church that inherits all the promises. Okay, so those are the two camps that the rulers want to herd Christians into, because if you are in either one of those camps, it's very likely you will be disqualified for the pre-trib rapture. And we know the beast wants as few of Christians to be raptured at pre-trib as possible. He wants as few Christians to be raptured at mid-trib as possible. He just has a different operation for preventing that at those 2 seasons. At Mid-Trib, he's going to send 1/3 of his wicked stars, angels, down to earth to try and devour the church before she's raptured up. Well, he's got a different way of operating right now at Pre-Trib. He's trying to keep Christians from being raptured by just saying a lot of lies, being deceitful, and trying to herd Christians into these 2 camps. So what is the camp I'm thinking that we should be in? What's the 3rd camp I think we should be joining? Because, who wants to just do what the beast wants us to do? I think what we need to be doing is learning the prophecies and just believing and quoting God with what he says is going to happen with the nation of Israel. That during the first half of the tribulation, there will be believing Jews grafted into the church. That would be the 2 witnesses, the 144,000. And the sleepy church, of course, is going to wake up. They're not going to be lukewarm anymore. They're going to be very hot and passionate for God. So we need to just be about believing the prophecies, studying the prophecies, believing that what they say, what God says is going to happen, is going to be happening. The 144,000 are not Gentiles. We've made this study very clear. We keep proving over and over and over. They are Jews from the nation of Israel. And God is able, in a split second, to pull that veil off the eyes of the 144,000, and he is able to bring them into belief. This is what Romans chapter 11 is all about. And God even says in Romans chapter 11 that if you don't think he can do that, or if you don't think he wants to do that, or you don't think he has the will to do that, God is saying your heart is hard and you are close to being cut off. And that means lose your salvation. So this is why I think it's very important that we study Bible prophecy, what is going to happen to the 144,000, what is going to happen in the nation of Israel. For sure, not all Israel is going to be saved during the first half, but for sure, by the end of the 7-year tribulation, God's word says, his prophecies say, that by the time they get to the end of the 7 years, all Israel will be saved. They are going to go through that refining fire. And it's as they go through that fire, Isaiah 43:2, God says, when you pass through the waters, I will be with you. And through the rivers, they will not overflow you. When you walk through the fire, so you're going to walk through the fire, you will not be scorched, nor will the flame burn you. So they are going to make it. They're either going to be martyred as believers, they're going to lay down their lives, the believing Jews, or they're going to make it to that mid-trib rapture. Now we know the 144,000, they've got that seal on them where they cannot be harmed. They're going to be raptured with the church at mid-trib, Revelation 12:5. Okay, so that wraps up our series. I hope you enjoyed this. Please put your comments in the comment section. You guys have amazing percolations. I appreciate what you've been saying in the comment section. So I will talk to you later. Bye.